Just like you, I like the Overwatch story. As we all know, the current trajectory of the story is a little unclear. More and more factions are being introduced, while not expanding on the other characters that they just added to the game. But even with the very little amount of characterization these new characters get, due to less and less story content being released, they always have a core personality concept. We know the very basics of Alari's story, explaining why she's always so upset and moody. But in her emotes and in-game actions, we can see what she was like before the accident, how she's capable of showing genuine joy, but feels the need to hide it. We have 4 big defining ways to understand an Overwatch character's personality: story, in-game hero interactions, customization, and mannerisms. There is basically only one rule when it comes to creating a character's personality, and that's making sure that they can't be outdated. Obviously, there is a very easy to understand problem with outdated characters. They share the worst fate a character can face: feeling out of place. That rhymed. Let's take a step back and look at the 2 most important personalities in gaming history. An example of a timeless character, and an example of an outdated character struggling to keep up with the times: Mario and Sonic. Stay with me, this will make sense. Mario's greatest strength for his characterization is that he only shows and never tells, whereas Sonic mainly tells. Anyone who's played any Mario game will tell you that Mario is righteous and heroic, and that's because the meaning of those words are universally agreed upon. Those words can't be outdated. For about 40 years straight, we know reliably who this character is. 1991. This Sonic dude is pretty cool, way cooler than Mario. But there's the problem. Cool is a term that is different for everybody. People find different things cool, but that was only the beginning. As time went on, people changed their minds on what is cool and what is lame. So I ask you, what is cool? Is it motorbikes and guns? Is it going through incomprehensible pain, coming out victorious? Is it being silent and strong? Is it making clever quips towards your enemies? The word cool basically got so inflated that it sprouted these subcategories, and ever since, Sonic has gone through many changes of being cool. Some Sonic fans found him over different iterations to either be annoying, corny, try-hardy, over the top, lazy, unserious, too talkative, not talkative enough, all because Sega was chasing this broad term: he is cool. And while that's all happening, Mario has been consistent for 40 years straight. This is the problem Reaper faces. He is a product of his time, destined to be outdated sooner or later. In 2016, people thought he was so freaking cool, dual-wielding Hellfire shotguns, a badass black trench coat, metallic accessories, a dope skull mask, and get this, when he ults, he says, die. Wow. But over time, millennials started to regret their tattoos and piercings, along with kind of realizing that Reaper is outdated. With each passing year and each new hero, that extremely potent 2016 badass vibe has become a joke. Reaper's character has become so outdated that he is literally now an example of what is lame. But this is where things go from laughable to disappointing. Blizzard obviously realized the perception of Reaper needed a much needed update, so they slowly started adding in-game interactions so we could see him differently. We already know his tragic backstory, so Blizzard doubled down by trying to humanize his character. We start to hear how the cool ghost powers are actually really painful, Moira's experiments clearly hurting him. Over time, he became less edgy and moody, but angry and in constant pain. And it's honestly a commendable task, turning a lame 2016 edgelord into a misunderstood hurting man putting up with extreme pain and suffering to get revenge. But these were subtle changes, in-game interactions. Blizzard knew they needed to show the fans this new Reaper they've been working on, front and center. February 22nd, a new Reaper skin is released alongside a new short story, Code of Violence. It's a story about Reaper's first mission with Talon. He would be joined with Sombra to find and take Sigma and ultimately recruit him. The best part of this story is that it takes place from Reaper's point of view. The story wastes no time with showing how Reaper ticks, instantly going into detail explaining that he isn't angry, but agitated, uncomfortable, an unstoppable feeling that swells into anger, something that's easily misinterpreted. Not only is he physically irritated, but emotionally he hangs on to memories before he was a monster. It's important to note that when he thinks of himself as a monster, it's not due to being violent or being a murderer, it's due to physically being deformed by the explosion in Switzerland and Moira's experiments, combined with thoughts of his loved ones no longer accepting him, causing him to slowly let that anger build up. We also learned during a conversation with Doomfist that Reaper isn't petty or needlessly vindictive, but he got pleasure from seeing locked up criminals, something that he had a hand in. Although Doomfist quickly makes him reconsider the justice system that he committed his life to, the same one that let him down. In his first interaction with Sombra, we immediately see that he gets annoyed not with people themselves, but their actions. After this little interaction, we get a very important reminder that Reaper is extremely smart and calculating. Years of experience as a soldier and a police officer make him constantly aware of who he's surrounded by. Soon after, we finally get to see what Reaper feels when he kills. He actually feels troubled by the relieving feeling it gives him. Pages like this solidify how important it is to read the story yourself, because for the sake of time I'm not going into great detail, but the story outlines that it's not pure murder that makes him feel better, but de-escalation. Clocking enemy intel, calculating threat levels, setting up in-the-moment plans, using his abilities efficiently, the loud gunfire, and the chaotic yelling during the fighting. All of it escalates, itches and pounds, and quiet. But then we see what happens when Reaper actually gets angry. And I mean angry, not irritated, sad, uncomfortable, or chasing a high. That lid that holds the anger struggles to do its job as Sombra pokes and prods at him, finally saying the one thing she shouldn't have said, blowing that lid sky high, giving us one of the coolest lines in a story I've ever read. With the impact of an atomic bomb, the walls of restraint within Reyes' soul splintered. Yeah, only slightly cooler than the goofball we got now, I guess. Anyway, he draws his guns. Showing off his combat experience, he tracks Sombra while she's invisible, aiming his gun at her head. Before killing Sombra, a voice of one of his shattered memories compels him to stop. The voice of his loved one. At the end of the story, Reaper convinces himself that the people he loves wouldn't recognize him because he doesn't even recognize himself, telling himself that love and friendship isn't something that he needs. A sad ending considering he never gave it a chance, too afraid of the words his loved ones would say. In his mind, it's better to inflict the wounds on himself and convince himself the people he cared about were going to say those words anyway. I highly recommend reading this short story, because you gotta remember, this came out during the wait for Overwatch 2 with its Promised Land story campaign drawing us in. When you read the story, you'll realize that Blizzard was gearing up for something massive for Reaper. Would he stay and convince himself that he is evil, or would he one day try and get clarity? Would those he loved recognize him? But two problems with that. So, obviously the Overwatch 2 story, you know. And secondly, this dope-ass story was conveyed in an historically unpopular way. The short story novels are the least popular avenues of storytelling. Motherfuckers saw the Reaper event, clicked on it, and was like, I ain't reading that. Then bam, years of character saving gone. Then double bam, no Overwatch 2 story. I don't know. GG Reaper. I guess you'll live in this strange world where you have great character moments, but mostly this shit.
Bet I could put a smile on that face of yours.
You'd lose that bet.
Even if I whip up some bloodshed just for you?